are there any changes in terms of memory requirements?
Yes, Satish. So if you look at the previous versions of UCCX, and if you do a comparison with the memory requirement of this version of UCCX, the 10.0, you will find that the memory requirement is almost double. So in the slide, you can see that, for example, if you take the 100 agent, the older version, say 8.5, had a requirement of 4 gig of memory, but then UCCX 10 requires you to have 8 gig of memory. Now, the most obvious question that comes is why? Why do you have an increase in memory? So, looking back at the previous versions of UCCX, like 8.5 or 9.0, when you install the UCCX, it was only the UCCX application that got installed on the appliance. But with 10.0, when you install UCCX, you have UCCX, you have Finis, and you have CUIC, who are co-resident on the same box. So this essentially means that you have 3 fully blown applications running out of the same server. So for you to ensure that each of these applications runs with the kind of performance that you would expect, you have increased the memory requirements. Now, if you are installing a UCCX 10.0, and if you use the Cisco OVF template available on cisco.com, you will be able to get this requirement sorted out automatically, because that will take care of all your requirements, including the memory, the number of CPUs, etc. But in case you are upgrading from 9.0 or 8.5, you will have to ensure that you add the additional memory when you come to 10.0. Because if you don't, then you will not be in conformance with these standards, and you will start seeing an error message actually on the app admin. So that's a warning message you have saying that, that you are not following the standards. So this might not impact business immediately, but long term it might impact your performance. So the error message will look like this on the app admin, on the application administration page. It will basically warn you that you are not compliant with the standards that we have set. Yeah.
Okay, I think that will definitely help. So, can you quickly walk us through in terms of the new features that are introduced in this release?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, there are a lot of new features introduced. I'll talk very briefly about them, but detail them in the blog as such. So first of all, it's the CUIC, like Cisco Unified Intelligence Center. Now, the CUIC, there was a flavor or a taste of CUIC given in the previous version of 9.0. Now, in 9.0, you had CUIC and the historical reporting client, of course, which is the legacy historical reporting tool for UCCX, and both of them were co-resident. Like, you could use either CUIC or HRC. But going forward from 10.0 onwards, it's going to be only the CUIC. So you cannot have HRC and CUIC at the same time. You don't have that option. So in case you're a customer who had CUIC in 9.0, all your configurations like schedules, custom reports will be migrated automatically to 10.0. But in case you are using HRC and you are using schedules, etc., so all those things have to be manually created again, because there is no migration method from HRC to CUIC once you move into 10. So that is one major thing you have to keep in mind in terms of CUIC. And there is a very nice feature called the CUIC Live Data gadget, which is there, which I'll detail in the blog. But that's something which I'm sure the customers will find handy. Now, moving on to the next one, it's Finis. Now, Finis, if you ask me, I think it's been one of the most anticipated features of UCCX. Finis is basically a browser-based desktop, as opposed to the client installed application like CAD, which was the legacy application. So Finis is going to be completely browser based. It's already in use in UCCE environments, but this is the first time it's being introduced in the UCCX environment. Now, with Finis, the customers and the partners can play around in creating their own custom gadgets, customizing how the desktop is going to look for the agent, and a lot of other new features. But then just a couple of things you need to keep in mind. One thing is this version of Finis, or this small flavor, is not going to give you the fully blown features of what CAD offers. Like, you can't do outbound and a couple of other features. So you might have to take a look on what Finis can do for you, and then take a call on whether you want to move into Finis. And all your agents, like if you have 100 agents, you need to make sure that all 100 of them use either CAD or Finis only. They can't, you can't have a situation where 50 are using CAD and 50 are using Finis. Okay, so that's you have to use, all of them have to use the same thing. Now, the other one is the media sense recording, obviously, which is again a very feature that was looked forward by a lot of people. Now, the legacy recording and the monitoring solutions of UCCX are there, will still be there with use in CAD, but then now we have an option where you can integrate UCCX with MediaSense, which will then integrate with Call Manager, where you can actually record all the calls of the agents, and all the recording files are stored on the MediaSense, and you can download it, you can play it, you can ship it to another server. So you have a whole new set of features with MediaSense coming in. Now, apart from these, this is just a very brief introduction, but apart from these, obviously you have a lot of other things, like you have the REST API access. That's something that's been introduced for the first time. So REST API access was there in the previous version, but this time you can actually use the REST call from the script editor itself. So you can configure your script to use the REST call. So this is a new feature. So all these and a lot of a whole new architectural change suite is actually introduced, and you can actually read about it in the guides and also the blog. I'll try to write as much as possible, but it's also there in all the documents which are going to come out before the release.
Okay, that helps. So once the user upgrades to 10, are there any surprises that he must be aware of?
Well, yeah, in terms of surprises, when you move to 10, you will not see something out of the blue, but then one feature I particularly want to talk about is the security enhancement, right? So in particular, it's the key store enhancement. Now, if you look at the old feature of UCCX or the old architecture of UCCX, there were two key stores basically. One is the UCCX engine key store, and the other is the platform Tomcat key store. And if you're a user of Call Manager also, you will realize that you can upload certificates into the Tomcat key store using OS administration. So that is something that is exposed to the user. You don't need TAC access. But if you're a UCCX administrator and you're using something like the get URL document, right, and you're trying to make a HTTPS connection to a server that is secure, so you will obviously need to upload the certificate and the certificate chain into the UCCX. But then you just know that UCCX engine has access to only to the engine key store. It doesn't access the Tomcat key store. But then the problem is the engine key store is not accessible by the user. It's only accessed by root. So you had to open a TAC case, get a TAC engineer to give you root access, and then the TAC engineer will upload the certificate for you, and then only then will you move forward. So this was a bit of a cumbersome process, and I think this feature has been implemented after a lot of feedback from the partner community as well. So it's a big step for the product. So what has changed is the UCCX, instead of accessing the engine key store, will now access the Tomcat key store itself. And like I've already told, the Tomcat key store is exposed to the user. So you don't have to contact TAC and obtain root access. You can just upload the certificate and the certificate chain into the Tomcat key store via the OS administration. But then, if you have not already guessed, the one step you have to do, in case you are already using the get URL document, to make a secure connection, is all your old certificates have to be re-uploaded into the OS administration page, via the OS administration page, into the Tomcat certificate store, because the UCCX engine no longer looks into the engine key store. So all your old certificates will be in the engine key store, but you will have to manually upload them again into the Tomcat key store. So if you don't do this, all your calls will start failing in the that go through the script. So if you ask me, this is one thing you just need to keep in mind. It's a very simple thing to do, but it's also simple to miss as well. So it's something that you have to keep in mind. Yeah.
Right. So I think we have covered a lot of sufficient information. But Abhiram, do you have a list of checkpoints that users should be aware of for a successful migration?
Well, yes, Satish, based on the number of TAC cases and the issues seen over the years, I have jotted down a couple of checkpoints. I'm sure you will have more as a customer based on your experience. But then the first thing, of course, is trivial but important, that get your image ready, the right image to upgrade with, and get the licenses ready. And at this stage, what I would like to tell you is, in case you have a problem or in case you have queries regarding which image to use, which license to procure, etc., I would really suggest that you can open a proactive TAC ticket, so the TAC engineer can actually get on a call with you and clarify your doubts before you actually start the process also, right? So the next thing would be Of course, like we discussed, if you are on a Windows platform, plan your upgrade properly, because you'll have to come to a Linux platform first and then you have to move into 10.x. And if you are, especially if you are planning a staggered upgrade, for example, you want to do 7 to 8.5 this weekend and upgrade from 8.5 to 10 the next weekend, so you have to make sure the call manager version also remains compatible with the versions that you're moving to, right? So make sure you plan your upgrades properly, including the call manager's versions. The next thing is, once you move into 10.0, make sure you add additional resources, like add memory if needed. Make sure that you are in conformance with the standards set by Cisco for this UCCX. This will basically prevent two things: that you won't see the warning anymore, and also it will actually give you better performance. I mean, it won't impact your performance during busy call hours or peak business hours. And the next thing would be, of course, if you have moved from MCS to UCS, and this is purely out of experience and previous attack cases, once the restore is completed, right, the DRF page might tell you that the restore is complete, but make sure that the LDAP part is restored as well. So how do you do it? It's very simple. Go to the Cisco Desktop Administrator page and make sure the entries are not blank. So if you're sure that you're seeing the entries, then it means the LDAP is restored as well. Right? And then just a word of advice or suggestion is that do not decommission our MCS server unless the UCS is completely validated and you're sure it's going into production. Because sometimes what we do in worst case scenarios is we manually migrate the LDAP database from the MCS to the UCS. So if you ever run into such situations, the MCS server will be very useful for us. Right. And of course, lastly, you migrate all your information from HRC to CUIC, like schedules and your custom reporting. And another thing which you have seen the testing is, in case you're not using Finis, right? If you have 100 agents all on CAD, you don't use Finis, it is greatly advisable that you shut down the Finis service, because we have seen high memory and memory spiking, CPU spiking with the Finis being turned on and it's not being used, and CAD is extensively used. So just turn down the Finis services if you're not using it. Right, and apart from that, I don't see any much hindrances in terms of you moving into 10.0. It should be a smooth transition. Of course, if you have any questions, you can always get back to us. And if something is broken, which I hope is not, you can always open a tag case. We are always there to help.
Right. Yeah. I believe those details will definitely help users to, prepare for a successful migration.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot, Abhiram, for those details.
It's a pleasure, Satish.
I think. So hope this Tech Talk on UCCX version 10 was useful to you, and we look forward to your feedback. You can send in your feedback using the comment section of this blog or video. And you may also ask questions and collaborate via various social media channels like Facebook and Twitter. You can also catch us on YouTube, Google+, and LinkedIn. Goodbye, and thank you for watching.